My name is Elias Thorne, or well, it was. I moved through this gritty city like a ghost. My apartment, perched high above the grumbling traffic, was supposed to be my fortress. I preferred the company of shadows. This apartment, my supposed sanctuary, held the scent of old books and solitude, a barrier that proved to be as fragile as spun glass. One night, the city hummed its melancholic tune outside my window. Then I saw it, a video, a close-up of a face. My face, asleep, in my bed. A cold dread pierced through the bourbon haze. My fortress had been breached. The shadows I trusted had betrayed me. The video ended abruptly, leaving a chilling echo. My sleeping face lingered on the screen, a grotesque parody of peace. Each viewing was a fresh violation. The blood in my veins turned to ice. How? The bedroom door, always locked. I lived alone. No one else had a key. The air grew colder, as if an unseen presence shared my space. Who would do this, and why? This was a digital rape of my private moments, a ghost in the machine watching me, enough to shatter my world, planting a seed of terror. Someone had been in my room. My fortress had become a cage. You are not safe. This wasn't just a video, but about power and control. Someone held a piece of my life, showing me how easily they could take more. Sleep now seemed like an invitation. The chill from that first video clung to me. It was a phantom limb, an ache where security used to be. My mind raced, a trapped animal in a cage of disbelief. How? The bedroom door, solid oak, deadbolt engaged every single night. I checked it, always. My ritual, my one constant in this shifting city. The windows sealed, latched, painted shut years ago by neglect or maybe a previous tenant's fear. There was no way in, no earthly way. Yet the evidence stared back from the screen. My sleeping form, undisturbed, unaware, a lamb to a silent slaughter of privacy. My apartment, my fortress. Now it felt defiled, tainted by an invisible intruder. Every shadow in the corners of my vision seemed to lengthen, to writhe with a life not its own. The familiar creaks of the old building, once ignorable, now sounded like stealthy footfalls on the worn floorboards. My senses screamed, raw, overloaded. The scent of stale air and old paper, once comforting, now seemed to carry a foreign trace. The faint smell of something else, something unknown. Was it real, or was my mind unmoored, inventing new horrors? The city's distant siren song felt like a personal lament. Sleep, it refused to come that night. I lay rigid in my bed, the sheets suddenly coarse against my skin. The locked bedroom door was a mockery, a thin veneer of safety that had already been peeled away. I stared into the oppressive darkness, eyes straining, listening. Every rustle of fabric, every sigh of the wind outside my grimy window was amplified, transformed into a potential threat. The video replayed endlessly in my mind, my face slack in sleep, the unseen lens hovering closer, always closer. The vulnerability was a raw, open wound. I felt naked, exposed. Dawn arrived, a reluctant gray smear in the sky. It brought no comfort, only a bone-deep weariness. The city stirred below, its cacophony a grating reminder of a world moving on, oblivious to my private terror. But for me, the night had not ended. It had merely seeped into the daylight hours. The feeling of being watched was no longer a fleeting suspicion. It had become a certainty, a heavy cloak draped over my shoulders, an unseen gaze that followed my every move, my every breath. The echo of that video was a promise. The show, it whispered, had only just begun. The next night, my dread found fresh poison. Another video, same anonymous account. My heart, already a bruised drum, hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This one was different, a slightly altered angle. Closer, perhaps. The quality still grainy, still steeped in the same unsettling darkness, but it was undeniably me, again, in my bed, asleep. The timestamp, chillingly recent, just last night. While I had thrashed in wakeful terror, someone had been there, calmly recording, documenting my descent into this personal hell. This digital leash was tightening, choking the air from my lungs. My hands trembled as I gripped the mouse. More videos, not just one, a series, each a few seconds long, snippets of my unconsciousness, different nights, different small shifts in the camera's position. The methodical patience of it was horrifying. This wasn't a random act. This was calculated, deliberate. a campaign of psychological warfare waged by an unseen enemy. Anger, cold and sharp, tried to pierce through the fog of fear. But the fear was too strong, too pervasive. It was a suffocating tide pulling me under. Who was doing this? And what did they want from me? The questions were a relentless torment. I pored over each frame, desperate for a clue, a reflection in my closed eyelids, a shadow in the background that didn't belong, anything, but the videos were stark, focused. My sleeping face, the unwilling star. The darkness around me was an impenetrable shroud, concealing the puppeteer. The room, my room, offered no answers, only the chilling confirmation of its violation. The camera was always steady, held by a hand that did not tremble, unlike my own. My fortress was a glass house, and the stones were already in flight. Each new upload was another shard driven deep. My life, once a predictable rhythm, fractured. Sleep became a battlefield I consistently lost. Food tasted like ash. Concentration, a forgotten luxury. The apartment transformed from a haven into a meticulously documented cell. I was a prisoner, and my jailer was an invisible voyeur with a camera. The silence I once craved now buzzed with unspoken threats, with the imagined click of a lens. The city outside, with its millions of unseeing eyes, felt like a vast, indifferent ocean in which I was slowly, inexorably drowning. The videos kept coming, a steady drip of terror, a digital noose pulling ever tighter. My attempts to secure the room became frantic, obsessive. I checked the deadbolt a dozen times. The old wood groaned under the pressure of a newly installed slide bolt. I wedged a chair beneath the knob, a flimsy barricade. The windows already sealed, I now covered with thick cardboard, plunging the room into an even deeper twilight. Each precaution felt hollow, a child's defense against the monster under the bed, a monster that was already inside. The man in the mirror was a stranger. His eyes, bloodshot and haunted, stared back from a face pale and gaunt. The constant vigilance, the gnawing fear, the crushing weight of the unknown. It was a relentless assault on my sanity. I was not mad, I was hunted, and my fortress of shadows offered no escape, only a front-row seat to my own destruction. The paranoia seeped out, staining the world. Every face seemed to hold a hidden meaning, a lingering glance. Was that a camera lens? My heart would leap, my solitude shattered, replaced by imagined stares. I thought about running. If they could get in, they could find me anywhere. A shadow I couldn't outrun. They breached my sanctuary. Sleep was surrender. And then another video. Each new clip tightened the vice around my sanity. The dread was about anticipation. Dawn brought no relief, just escalation. Instead of another video, I received a photo of me at my desk at work, taken from outside the building. Every detail was visible, my mug, the plant, my posture. Proof the stalker's reach extended beyond my home. No message, no demand, just a silent, chilling trophy. My workplace, once safe, was now part of their game. The city's crowds offered no protection. Every window, every passerby felt complicit. My world was shrinking fast. Desperate, I went to the police. The officer barely looked up as I explained. Videos, photos, no forced entry, no threats. He handed me a form, bored, unmoved. "No crime here," he said. "Change your locks, be more careful." I left in the rain, the city colder than before. The blue wall offered no help, just indifference. I was truly alone. The police's dismissal left me isolated. Now every face in the city was a suspect, every window a possible vantage point. My commute became a gauntlet of paranoia, every reflection, every camera, a threat. Colleagues whispered. I taped over my monitor's camera. The city itself felt like a trap, its crowds a chorus of unseen watchers. There was no escape, just the crushing weight of their gaze. Sleep was a memory, exhaustion ruled me. Work suffered, errors, missed deadlines, my boss's patience thinning. I couldn't explain the truth, I was being haunted, unraveling. My apartment became a prison. I talked to empty rooms, pleaded with the silence. The line between real and imagined blurred. My reflection was a stranger, gaunt, hollow-eyed, accused. The photos and videos kept coming, each one a fresh wound. I was slipping, fragmenting, terror woven into my very being. My life became a battle against sleep. Coffee kept me upright, but exhaustion gnawed at my sanity. The city slept, but I paced, haunted by every sound. Tricks to stay awake failed, shadows writhed, objects twisted. Fear of what would happen if I slept was relentless. Each night was a siege. I was the lone defender losing ground. The war raged on, silent and brutal inside my skull. Desperation made me set crude traps, magazines on doors, talcum powder for footprints, fishing line in the hallway. Every morning, nothing was disturbed. My enemy left no trace. Cameras felt like surrender, so I relied on clumsy inventions. My efforts were futile, my paranoia growing. Were they watching me set these traps? The thought chilled me. My fortress was transparent, my desperation a spectacle. The nights grew longer, the silence more menacing. The relentless lack of sleep, coupled with the constant gnawing fear, began to warp my senses. My mind, starved of rest, started to play tricks, cruel, insidious tricks. The old building settled around me, its groans and creaks no longer mere structural complaints. They became whispers, faint, sibilant sounds just at the edge of hearing. I'd freeze, straining to decipher them, words I couldn't quite make out. Laughter, thin and cold as a razor's edge, seeming to drift from the empty corners of the room. Was it real, or was it the sound of my own sanity fraying, snapping thread by fragile thread? Shadows in the periphery of my vision danced and elongated, taking on vaguely human forms. A flicker of movement by the window, a dark shape looming in the hallway. I'd whirl around, heart leaping into my throat, only to find nothing, just the familiar, oppressive gloom of my apartment. The city lights outside cast shifting patterns through the grimy window panes, painting the walls with a macabre, moving tapestry that fueled my already overwrought imagination. Every rustle of the wind, every distant car horn became a potential signal, a sign of their presence, their imminent return. The air itself felt charged, thick with an unseen presence. Sometimes I'd feel a cold spot, a sudden drop in temperature in a specific part of the room, as if someone had just passed by. The hairs on the back of my neck would prickle. My skin would crawl. I started to avoid certain areas of the apartment, places where the feeling of being watched, of being near something, was strongest. The small kitchen with its perpetually dripping faucet became a place of particular dread. The rhythmic drip, drip, drip sounded like a countdown. A countdown to what I dared not imagine. My apartment was no longer a neutral space. It had become an active participant in my torment. Its silence was accusatory, its shadows concealing, its sounds deceitful. I was trapped in a waking nightmare, a film noir horror playing out in real time, with me as its unwilling star. The line between what was real and what was manufactured by my sleep-deprived, terrified mind became increasingly blurred. The phantoms were closing in, whether they existed outside my head or solely within it, their effect was the same. To push me further into the abyss of fear and isolation. The city continued its rhythm, a stark contrast to the chaos within. I was a man on a fraying rope, suspended over despair. The videos and photos slowed, but kept the terror alive, reminding me I was still their subject. My attempts at normalcy crumbled. Work was a distant memory. In a way, I had vanished, replaced by this haunted shell, a creature of shadows, a desperate urge to fight back, to scream into the void. But the challenge always went unanswered. The abyss wasn't just below, it was gazing back. My reflection was a stranger, a gaunt figure with wild eyes. I was unraveling. The isolation was a weight too heavy to bear. Losing my grip on who I once was, I was lost within the city's darkest corridors. Exhaustion crept in, wearing down even the strongest will. My fight against sleep had become a losing battle. I was in the faded armchair when my head lolled and my eyelids drooped. The darkness enveloped me. I drifted in that hazy space between wakefulness and sleep. A part of my mind screamed a silent warning, but the pull of oblivion was too strong. Then, A searing burst of light pierced through my closed eyelids. My eyes snapped open. Disorientation gripped me. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew with a certainty that chilled me that I was no longer alone in the room. The silent watcher had finally stepped out of the shadows. My eyes burned. The darkness felt deeper now. My heart hammered, but it wasn't empty. Slowly the familiar shapes of my room began to coalesce, and then a form, a shadow detaching itself, motionless, waiting, a glint, something metallic, held low, a lens, a camera, pointed directly at me. The silhouette resolved, a woman. In my locked room, in one hand the camera, in the other a knife. Who are you? No word, only the click of the camera, recording, always recording. The knife lifted slightly, a promise. The nightmare had a face, and it was here. She moved fast, a blur in the darkness. The knife bit into my shoulder. I thrashed, but the room was too small. She was on me. The camera filmed her grotesque masterpiece. Her face was a mask of cold, focused intensity. Blood soaked my shirt. The struggle was a desperate ballet of violence, another stab, my side. I could feel my strength ebbing. The room spun. Why? I gasped. Only a void. The camera lens captured every spasm, just a profound weariness. The nightmare was over. The woman loomed above me, her camera still recording. My unseen gaze now forever still.